Welcome to Empowered by AI, the podcast for women entrepreneurs ready to harness AI to take their businesses to the next level. I'm your host, Michelle Ament Silva, founder of Innovative AI Studios. You may have left corporate life to start this entrepreneurial journey, but you don't have to go it alone. Here, you'll find a supportive community of like-minded women and an invaluable thought partner each week, as my guests and I share actionable insights you can use right away. So let's dive in together. All right. So I want to introduce you to our friends of the podcast. We have today Michelle Ament, who is the co-founder of the Human Intelligence Movement. And Michelle, I wanted to give you space to tell us a little bit about not only your professional path towards this work, but also what sparked the need for something as profound as the Human Intelligence Movement.
Thank you. It is such a pleasure to be here, Michelle, and I am so excited for this conversation. A little bit about myself. I am a career educator. I have been in education as an elementary teacher, a building principal, a district administrator for the last, I think it's almost 30 years, which is like mind blowing to think about. You've
Way too young for that. Way too young for that.
probably have been in education around that long too, right?
Yes.
And the years just go by so fast. And so in the last 3 years, I have been the chief academic officer of ProSolve, and we are a human skills development company. So we are focused on developing the uniquely human skills that students need today and in the future. And so I've been doing that work for the last 3 years, really diving into what does it mean to create an experiential learning curriculum. And from that work really came this idea of starting the human intelligence movement. So the CEO of ProSolve, Travis Allen, and I work very closely together and said, we need to really start a movement where we're getting people to rally behind this need for more human intelligence. And for many years, Travis has been bringing that message forward in his keynotes and places he speaks. And we've been talking about it internally with ProSolve throughout the time I've been there. But it wasn't until there was like all of a sudden this rise of AI about 18 months ago where we said, okay, now is the time. We're starting to see this groundswell of people really curious about AI and began to see what the future looks like in an AI integrated world, and knew that we really needed to bring people around this idea of balancing AI with HI, or human intelligence. And it was last March where we just put the idea into the universe and said, who wants to join this movement to really preserve what makes us human in this AI world? And we were just blown away by the number of people who started to follow and say, I want to be part of this cause. It means so much right now to really preserve what makes us uniquely human. And so that's really how the human intelligence movement started.
And I know you've discussed this at length. I'm following you on your LinkedIn, and I know you've talked before about the importance of balancing, right? AI's efficiency with that irreplaceable value of human connection.
Right.
And I'm wondering if what as that most underdeveloped or maybe even undervalued human capacity today.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's evolved for me because I think if you asked me that a year ago, I would have said empathy or relationship skills. And while that is really underdeveloped, I think in a lot of young people, that ability to have that human connection, something I'm more concerned about today is the ability for humans to be adaptable. And I think this is surfacing more for me because I see this rapid change of pace that's happening and this ability to be adaptable in an AI world, to learn and unlearn things, to use it, multiple pieces of information and have divergent thinking, to be resilient in the face of rapid change. I think more and more I see adaptability as an underutilized skill set, but I also will always go back to that human connection, that ability to build empathy, have empathy for one another and build relationships. Those two for me would be the most underutilized or underdeveloped skills.
And in my experience, as we're talking about building skills, we have so many students in today's educational environment that have entrepreneurial ambitions. So many of the students that I talk to, that is a path that they want to actively pursue. So I'm curious what your take is on this. How do you think educators can sharpen that human intelligence side of the equation as they are building AI enhanced business skills?
Yeah, it's a great question. And two things come to mind, I think, and they're very different path, very different things that need to happen. I think, first of all, we need to equip educators with the space to be entrepreneurs themselves. And I think as I left public education and moved into a startup culture, I was blown away by how different of a culture of innovation. I thought I was really innovative in a school district, and I came to see that I was an innovative teacher, and I came to see what innovation really is. And I think we need more of that startup culture in our schools and in our school systems so that educators really learn what it means to be entrepreneurial and be able to come up with a novel idea, be able to take a risk and try something and fail and learn from that and rinse and repeat that process and feel safe doing it. I know for me as an educator, stepping into that environment, it took I was risk adverse. Like I was so afraid to try something without knowing exactly what would happen, what the outcomes would be. And I think as educators, we've created this system that has conditioned our teachers in some ways to be similar, but also as a system, we haven't afforded them the opportunity to take risks, to try something innovative, and to learn from that. We're so afraid of failure in many ways. And so I think that first part is making sure educators start to have that spirit themselves because then they can start to think like a startup and be able to bring that into their classrooms where they can equip students with those adaptability skills, those that resiliency, the willingness to take a risk, to try and be curious about something and step into the unknown and then learn from that. And that I think are those are some of the mindsets and skills that students, when I talk about the need for adaptability in an AI world, that we're all going to need. And so whether it is educators being adaptable with their craft or whether it is students learning those skills and traits that carry forward into the workplace.
And how do you imagine that we make space for that? How do we what I'm hearing you say is really that there needs to be that space for almost intuition, if you will,
Yeah.
the deep work that we need to do around evolving our skills,
Mhm.
around things like entrepreneurial spaces, which are a little more outside the box than what we've traditionally exposed students to. How do we make space for that while also teaching new concepts around AI?
I think that the first thing that I think comes to mind is this need to reduce the accountability measures that we've put in place on a knowledge era of schooling. So we have had the same sort of factory model that we put in place in the industrial age. We assess kids for what they know. The end of the year tests are happening. They're probably over by now, but it was the whole year was a race to that end of the year test to assess what kids know. And when we lock ourselves into that type of cycle, we're consumed by covering content, being able to get through the standards, being able to accomplish the scope and sequence. And I think in that regard, we're not opening up the space to be able to try a different project, be able to follow our intuition, take 3 weeks on something with students because they're really invested in what they're learning. They're curious about the outcome. It's relevant and meaningful to them. Instead, we often say, "Gotta move on. We gotta get to the next topic so that we can meet the standards for our state assessment. And so that knowledge era is outdated in an AI world. You and I both know anything we want to know, we can find easily. And I would say we could have done that with the internet as well. But now, even more so with AI, the knowledge era is completely outdated. And so I think as we think about what are the AI literacy skills that we need to be teaching, the first thing we need to do is let go of we can't have continue to have the knowledge era and this AI era and have both types of skills and knowledge happening. We need to let go of that knowledge era and focus more on the mindsets, the human intelligences that we will need, and then those AI how to apply that in an AI context.
And I'm wondering what you feel are maybe some of those unique contributions to this that women bring to the table. Because
Mm,
I know there are so many of us that are having these conversations. It's like you cannot stop tripping over. There's so many different women talking not only about AI, but talking about AI in education as well. So I'm curious how you see women bringing unique contributions, how they're leading in this space a little differently.
yeah, so many places and yet still so underrepresented, I think. However, I do think that women bring this lens of really caring deeply about humanity and what does this mean for us as humans and what does this mean in education. And I am not to say that men don't care about that, but I think women innately have this sense of care, this sense of empathy that we often lead with. And so in this space, I see a lot of women thinking about, okay, thinking really critically and speaking up about what are some of the dangers of AI? What are some of the things that we need to be thinking about? Whether it is the relationships that kids are having with AI bots and AI applications, and just being aware of that, and how is that changing that human connection? All the way to how is AI maybe taking away some of the opportunity to be in a relationship with other people and being able to problem solve and figure things out collectively. I can go to AI and really get solutions and ideas and answers in a different way than having to interact and be in conversation with someone. And I think the women I see in this space are asking those really important questions and pushing the industry to really be thinking around, have we really thought deeply about what the rise of this technology means for us as a species, as humanity?
And what kinds of impacts or transformations have you seen so far from the human intelligence movement?
Yeah. That has been really fun to see because it is a movement. So we have over 700 people involved in just contributing their strengths and their talents. And I think first, one of the things that I saw is the synergy of human connection, seeing people that don't know each other, have never met, coming together around a similar cause, something that they care deeply about, and right there, that brings a connection that's unique. And so, for example, we put together a virtual summit. And again, like, no, that's a big deal to like plan and organize and orchestrate an event, all led and facilitated by people that were just getting to know each other and recognizing what strengths and talents they could bring. So I think one thing is just really tapping into one another has been a huge accomplishment. We have a research team that has identified and defined what is human intelligence. And so that team meets weekly, brings their great thinking, but also research in the field to really be able to inform others, educators, leaders, industry partners about what the dimensions of human intelligence are. So that we have a position paper that we've published. So that is a huge accomplishment. We have monthly events, whether it is a member mingle where there's networking or professional development series, and really giving people the space to share their ideas, their thoughts around the need for human intelligence and what are the best practices to get there. So just even being able to contribute awareness and in the space along with building community with one another.
And what are some of those core values that you feel are really guiding your movement forward?
We think about the movement, the mission of the human intelligence movement is to ensure that all students have the uniquely human skills they need to succeed and thrive in our AI world. And so, with that mission, we think about awareness, community building, and advocacy. And so, the first kind of pillar or belief that we have is that we need to make some noise in this space. We need to really be having people wake up and be aware that human intelligence is underserved and that we need to be ensuring that we are redefining and reimagining what learning looks so students are able to build these adaptability skills, these relationship skills, the things that the human intelligences we've talked about. Then we really believe in community. So there are some wicked problems in education that we have not been able to solve in our tenure, but for years and years. And so we believe that if we bring these brilliant minds together with their ideas and practices and create the conditions for people to collaborate, maybe we can finally do something in education to make change for today and in the future. And that kind of leads to the third belief is we really believe in advocating for something different. So that could look like policy change at a national or federal level, at a state level, or even at a school district local level. How can we really, through our awareness and through our best practices, advocate for something different and really help people wake up and see that artificial intelligence is so rapidly growing, changing, and evolving so quickly, and our human intelligences really are stagnant. Our kids are never before have we seen such mental health crisis or addiction to social media. And those human intelligences, we aren't investing in that at the same rate as we're investing in artificial intelligence.
And I know that you can probably speak to this at length. I think there is such a disparity in access that oftentimes I think of AI as the potential to both bridge and widen this divide. So I know we have many people have access, but the disparity I see is the way that they are interacting with it, how they're being talked to about it, or how they're being taught about it. What measures do you think we can take to build a more equitable opportunity for AI enhanced education, the resources for students to not only learn with AI enhanced teaching skills, but also learn how to be more than just consumers of it, but actually own the process of using it productively for their own means?
Yeah. That is a great question. And I'm so glad that you're kind of centering the conversation on that. I think first and foremost, I think it always begins with that professional development, the adult. And I know at the beginning of kind of this journey, there was a lot of fear around AI taking over the teacher and fear around the use of AI. And so we started to see a lot of safeguards put in place or bans put in place to not use it. I'd like to think that we've moved quickly away from that. I don't know. Do you think that's still like really present, that fear, or do you think we've evolved in this short time?
I think there's a middle ground there. I think that it's a good day to be an educational product developer right now because everybody wants AI to be in a safe little well-wrapped package, right? Because we don't want the liability issues. We're obviously not just going to hand students a tool like Midjourney or ChatGPT and let it be without safeguards. So I think there are a lot of districts right now that are looking for very pretty packaged safeguards so
Mhm.
they can feel like they're doing their due diligence.
Sure.
At the same time, a lot of the conversations that I'm hearing are at a very basic level around We're going to allow students to be consumers of AI in this very, I would say, maybe safe, timid kind of way. And what I'm really interested in is developing a collection of educators that are very interested in not taking the safeguards away, because I understand we need to have those in place, but really empowering students to own the experience with AI as opposed to just AI being a new tool to use. If you see the
Yeah,
difference in what I'm
I
saying,
I
right?
do, and what sparks for me is it's really about how you approach it, right? So there we could approach this time as here's a new technology and we're going to teach you the 5 steps on how to use this, and it becomes very transactional versus
Mhm.
really thinking about how can the use of this tool change my intelligence, change my human potential? And
Right.
I don't know. I think about this a lot lately. I use AI all the time, right? All day I'm using AI, and I've really stepped back and thought about, okay, how has this really changed me and the potential that I have as a human, the untapped intelligences or the untapped strengths that I haven't been able to leverage. And I've really seen in myself this ability to think around a problem or be able to synthesize ideas. I would often get fatigued where I wouldn't get to that level of deep thinking because I was producing content and then time was up or I was fatigued or whatever the case might be, where now I can leverage AI to get me to a point where now I can really synthesize and analyze or think around a problem at a much higher level. So it's tapped into my cognitive abilities in a greater way. And so I guess getting back to, I'm using that example to think about how do we approach this with students? It's how does this change our thinking and our way of processing information? And then how does AI support that? So we lead with the human potential, the human intelligence, not with the artificial intelligence.
So let's sit and stay with that for a second, because if we look at, you just brought something up for me that I really want to dive into, because I'm having this conversation with adults as that are both in education and out of it. If we look at, let's take the tool that people are most familiar with. Let's take Chat GPT. So if we look at Chat GPT and we say, Chat GPT will do this task for me. Okay. One, we're going back to the knowledge work that you talked about before. We're going back to a output that we as educators are expecting from students, whether it be an essay or whether it be a test, like we
Mhm.
brought up. If it's output based and you want Chat GPT to be a simple task doer, then yeah, we've got something to be worried about, because
Right,
plagiarism is plagiarism. If that's all we're asking, then that's all we're going to get. And that is where many of the educators that I'm talking to that are anti AI, they think that's what it is.
right.
It's just another way that kids are producing the outcomes without having to actually do the outcomes. So they're looking at Chat GPT as the latest version of the internet. And I think what you're talking about, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but when we talk about shifting thinking, we're actually talking about shifting pedagogy as well, be-
Absolutely.
because I can't ask for you to necessarily sit and stay with, I'm going to have you take this test, I'm going to have you produce this essay. If I'm going to truly have a student own AI, then I'm maybe going to develop a custom GPT that acts like a student writing at the fifth grade level. And then my students are going to have to come in and work with the output that Chat GPT gave them. And they're going to have to figure out how to take that essay and make it better.
Mhm,
See, now I've flipped it. So now the output is where we start. The
mhm.
output is coming from Chat GPT, and what I'm scoring, what I'm evaluating is on the other side of that. It's how are the students reacting to that Chat GPT created output? And that's where I think you're on to that idea of shifting thinking. It's turning the whole educational system on its head.
We right now we're asking the wrong questions. We're measuring the
Exactly.
wrong outcomes. And I
Exactly.
think you're really helping me see how I love that idea of how could the output really drive what students are doing with the output. So that becomes how do you use AI in a way that mirrors what the day-to-day workforce, how the day-to-day workforce would use AI? And how do you simulate that same degree of problem solving, that same degree, that same use of AI? And it's just making me think fireworks are going off in my brain and I'm thinking,
Mhm.
yes, it also is we've been assessing the wrong thing for numbers of years, right?
Yeah.
When we think about when we've asked kids to regurgitate information, it's no different than that. But right now, there's so much urgency is because we are getting outpaced by AI and our students graduating now, moving into the workforce, need to know how to think differently, like you just described. And it's exponentially going to get the pace is faster and faster.
Yeah. And what you brought up about professional development is a valid piece of this as well, because we don't know what we don't know. Had I not read something from someone who was a couple steps ahead of me around the shift in pedagogy, that concept would not have come to my mind, right? Because I'm sitting, okay, I'm stuck in they have to have an output. I'm stuck in they have to be prepared for this test. I'm stuck in my pacing guides,
Right.
my end of term output, whether it be a district benchmark or a site benchmark. The list goes on and on as well as I do. That we still have many systems around us that are really aligned to a knowledge-based output that demonstrates memorization of a rather basic skill.
Right.
And now what we're looking at is what kind of training, if we give teachers the space that you talked about to allow them to do that experimenting, how many teachers do we have out there that could then turn to a colleague and be that voice of, hey,
Mhm.
totally get your concerns. I know exactly where you're at because I was there last semester, but look at what the kids are doing now.
And how do we create conditions for pockets of innovation
Mm,
where
yeah.
we free up teachers to be able to try something and then be able to guide their colleagues, be that proof point that people want to be able to see and learn from?
Mhm.
Versus our professional development continuing to be the same sit and get mentality as we've done.
Yeah, yeah, and that's where you're gonna create your tipping point,
Mm.
is when you have colleagues looking at other colleagues and going,
Yeah.
"Okay, totally get you, but check this out."
And that willingness to take a risk and be vulnerable, and again, it comes back to accountability. I can remember my feeling like I couldn't 2 things, that my principal was gonna come down the hall and bring my scores and say, Here are the results, explain to me why these students didn't grow." So there's that fear, that accountability fear, but also we hear a lot of times where teachers will say, "I have to shut the door and hide in my room in order to do something innovative or do something different," because they
Mm,
feel like they just don't have that freedom and autonomy. So
yeah,
I think it's all the system right now is broken when we think about both the accountability measures, the stuck in the knowledge era, and I don't fault teachers at all because they are part of a system that is not serving them to be their very best selves. And I think we're at a tipping point right now where we really need to change in our system or we're going to lose humanity as a result of it.
but I wanna shift to positivity for a moment. What
Yeah.
gives you hope right now? What is encouraging you right now, and where are you seeing the beginning sparks that we know are gonna flame the entire movement? Where are you seeing that?
I'm seeing it in people in conversations like this. And just this like spark of here's what we need to do. And then people coming along and really using their voice and having that rallying cry that something needs to change. I think I have hope there. I have hope in, while there are a lot of things happening in our Department of Education that I question and that I wonder about, I also see something is happening. And so what does that mean for us while in the long run? So I have hope in maybe there will be some significant changes there. And but most importantly, I have hope in the people of the human intelligence movement that are bringing their best practices, their ideas. And I really believe that the wicked problems get solved when people come together in a community and can make change.
And what's next for the movement and for you? What's coming up?
We are getting started this summer. We have an AI summer challenge happening where we are trying to balance this idea of learning about AI while also learning about how to incorporate human intelligence. We continue to have events each month. And so lots of just coming together as a community. I think for me personally, just really continuing to explore this idea of how is AI making me smarter, increasing my human intelligence, my human potential. There's more I want to uncover around this idea because I think with the right approach, we could really maximize who we are and our strengths while leveraging AI. But it definitely, like we uncovered in this conversation, it means a different way of thinking and a different way of approaching AI. It's less about I'm going to use AI for efficiency or to save time. That's helpful for at points. It is more about how can I use this to strengthen who I am and the intelligence I bring.
Very much, very
Mhm.
much. And Michelle, we're better off for having had the conversation with you. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I want to make sure that people can connect with the human intelligence movement. Do you want to give them some details to see how they can do that?
Sure. The easiest way is to go to our website, and it's humanintelligencemovement.org, all one word. You can also find us on LinkedIn. We have a group there. And also you can email me at Michelle at hi4ai.org. And that's a number 4. So Michelle at hi4ai.org.
Fantastic. We're going to have all of that detailed out in the show notes.
Perfect.
Thank you again. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to Empowered by AI. If today's episode sparked ideas, don't wait. Follow the link in the show notes to visit innovativeaistudio.com and download your free resource created to help you put today's insights into practice. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes packed with more tips, tools, and inspiring stories. Until next time, stay empowered and keep innovating.